Hey everybody, Justin Worden, and you're watching What's New in Electronics. We are in Chicago at SMTA. I'm back at it with Brian O'Leary from India, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, and yourself?
Man, I have been asking them to come back to Chicago. It's actually my first time in Chicago. I should be lying. I'm lying. I've been at all the Minnesota shows, but I've been hearing how awesome the vibe is in Chicago. They weren't lying.
Yeah. No, it's fun to be back here.
It's
cool.
It's
Place.
a unique layout, the assembly show. There's a lot of crossover for you and I, too, over at the assembly show.
Sure. Yep.
Have you got a chance to look at all the robots and everything over there?
Tomorrow I'm going to walk the floor. So
yeah, that's good, man. Well, let's talk about what you've been up to. You know, you're like my go-to guy to figure out what's going on in the industry, specifically with like the electronic vehicles or the not electronic vehicles. Like, what are we calling it now?
Well, there's still EVs. There's a lot of talk about, well, the market is soft, or it's maybe this isn't going to take off. It couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is the whole entire automotive industry in general has been off. Mm-hmm. But the one bright spot is anything that's electrified. What has changed, though, is this concept of a full battery electric vehicle, so there's no combustion element to it, versus one that's called a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Two separate drivetrains. But as far as we're concerned in this industry, so what? It's all electronics, one way or the other. And even if it doesn't even have an electrified powertrain, even the onboard electronics of called traditional combustion vehicles are becoming more jam-packed with electronics.
Well, I mean, everything is. The brakes, the transmissions are electronics now. I mean, yeah, the windows, that was a big deal. We went from the crank windows to the electric windows, but the entire car, the entire gas-powered car is run by electrical component.
Yeah, no, for sure.
The airbags?
Yep. Everything. So now we got, of course, ADAS has been around for a long time, but as autopilot becomes more sophisticated, AI on the edge, you have all this high computational power in these vehicles. Talk about the iPhone analogy. That's what cars are now becoming. They're becoming everything other than transportation. They become entertainment. You can have a meeting in a lot of modern cars. It's quite remarkable the speed at which this industry, automotive, which has been pretty static for 100 years, is morphing very quickly.
So I want to come back to this hybrid dual drivetrain Frankenstein of a car we're talking about. The last time you and I spoke back at Apex last year, you were just getting back from China and Korea, and we had a really good discussion about how much farther ahead they are in the EV thing. As far as that goes, when we talk about these hybrids, is that just something you're seeing happening here in the United States, or across the globe, are you starting to see a transition towards this hybrid model?
The transition, if you want to call it that, I think is more of like pumping the brakes. It's not all markets are ready for a fully electrified transportation system because we just don't have the infrastructure in place, unlike China. So the United States and Europe are doing a lot of work in that sort of plug-in hybrid electric vehicle space, but China hasn't gotten the memo. They are full speed ahead with fully electric vehicles. And it is a reason for concern for a lot of legacy guys who are trying to catch up. If anything, they're just putting off the inevitable, and that is everything is going to move over to a fully electric future. So the Chinese are just running fast and running furious, and they're getting ahead.
No one wants to. Well, I take that back. I think we all kind of know, right?
Yeah.
But we don't want to admit it. Did you go to the keynote this morning?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, one of the main things he was talking about was change, and we all just been fighting it. But once you adopt it and you kind of get into it, it works, right?
Yeah.
But the infrastructure is the constant thing we hear, at least in the United States. I don't know much about what they're battling over in Europe, but in the United States, infrastructure is always an issue. But I'm actually wondering, is it infrastructure or is it the lack of patience?
Well, we have to be patient. That's a given, because it's not going to. It was already known it wasn't going to happen fast enough. So, and I think with some of the challenges we have, there's always opportunities. One of the areas that I see a lot of acceleration that's kind of related to all of this is in battery energy storage units. What does that have to do with infrastructure? It has a lot to do with infrastructure, because if you can bank power in areas that the grid is just not set up to support, DC fast charging, a vehicle that wants to be charged in 10 minutes, you got to have a big hunk of battery ready on demand that is trickle charging, as it's sitting there, but has the energy on demand. And I was just in speaking of Anaheim, last time we met, I was just in Anaheim a few months ago at a show that battery energy storage took up the entire floor of what our industry usually does. And that was only one component. And it was unbelievable. And the number of companies I've never even heard of. What's cool for us is it's inverters and power electronics and more electronics, so.
Well, I mean, that's one thing we can say that we're in the right industry, because
Right.
it doesn't matter what direction anything goes, there's going to be more components.
Right.
More components means more business for people like you and I, which we all love. Everyone watching this loves what's new in electronics. But I want to come back to these batteries because it does take up a lot of space. It's also a very valuable asset.
Sure is.
So you have to have a whole other infrastructure built around that as far as security and how you maintain that asset.
Well, should I mention China again?
Never heard of them.
So a lot of the batteries are made in China. The vast majority, from the actual mining of these materials to refinement to the manufacturing. Some of the assembly is happening here in the United States and other markets, but yet again, the Chinese are way ahead in battery technology.
You know, every time you walk in here, I make a mental note. Don't go political, don't go political, don't go political, don't go political. He's going to bring up
But
stuff.
you're going to do it.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But no, it's always fun to learn what was going on in the other markets, because I think from our side, we sit and we look and we think because we're not doing it, they're doing it wrong. But that's not necessarily the case. You know, we just don't have the same beliefs or vision, or I think we don't have the same patience that maybe they're already over.
They had a 10-year head start, like on batteries. It takes about 10 years to build a refinery that's going to, we can't just do it on a drop of a hat. It takes time to build this all out. And the Chinese, like you said, they had a vision for this a long time ago, and we're playing catch up. We're going to get there.
All right, so let's go back to the hybrid thing, because I still don't understand what the goal is this, because I feel like hybrids have been around since the 2000s.
But see, it's confusing. So hybrid technically is just regenerative braking. So you put gas in the car, every time you brake, energy goes into a battery.
Sure.
That's it. Plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, there's literally a plug that you're charging a battery with an electric powertrain.
In addition to a gas tank.
Correct.
Oh, wow, okay.
So it's kind of both of.
Sounds like a bomb. Sorry, was I not supposed to say that?
No,
Okay.
but there is a lot of the automakers now are pivoting towards offering plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And I got to ask, or I would say, when people ask me, what do you suggest? That would actually be my suggestion, unless you've got a garage, and not everybody has a garage to charge their car, is get a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, because you typically get 50, 60 miles of range off a charge. And here in the US, most Americans only drive about half of that a day.
But what does that do to the price of cars? I mean, I already think,
they're reasonable.
The $100,000 SUV is inexpensive nowadays,
but
right?
all cars are expensive.
I know.
And the average price is around $50,000.
How much more can we? I mean,
Yeah.
now you're going to add another motor and another drivetrain.
Well, you know why it's getting expensive? All those electronics.
All those electronic failures.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not supposed to. They're going to kick me off this TV show pretty soon. You're not going to be allowed to come back on. Brian, man, it's so much fun to have you on. Thank you so much, man.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks.